First play of the game, we're going blind pig.
We're going to go blind pig.
Blind pig, yeah.
So I'm also a big fan of the blind pig. Actually,
the only reason we're running
Blind
this
Pig
action.
podcast. It is the SLB Cup review. Let's be honest, man, things got a little bit crazy. But overall, the event itself was one of my absolutely personal favourite ones that I've been to. But the narrative, unfortunately, is all going to be about the scuffle that happened at the end of the game between the London Lions and Manchester Basketball. I've thought quite a lot about how I want to do this, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and split those two things up. So this video is just going to be about the game itself, and then I'm going to release another video tomorrow focusing on all of the extra stuff. And I want to do that really deliberately because the basketball was actually really, really good, especially in the men's competition. I think for me, it's an example of just how talented the London team are, being able to fight through that adversity in the first half. And I'd rather, for me, that be the story and close the book on that rather than all of the extra stuff. But let's break it down then, starting off first in the women's game, where the Manchester Basketball women's team were taking on the Sheffield Hatters. And Manchester came out really determined. They only held the lead once in this game, but I thought they worked really hard in that first half to keep the game really close. East for Manchester, she played an awesome game. She was aggressive getting to the hoop, she created for the others. Irene was also fantastic, although she picked up some cheap fouls in the first quarter. And I think that probably stopped head coach Ollie Parr from really being able to utilise her in the second quarter, potentially the way she wanted. And to be honest, in the first half, it really felt like Manchester fouling was allowing the Sheffield Hatters to stay alive through their free throws, and it really allowed them to be successful. The tail of the tape for Manchester, it's got to be not being able to convert on opportunities. 38% field goal percentage, including 19% from three. They only had 10 assists on the game compared to Sheffield's 27. For the Sheffield Hatters in that first half, things were a little bit harder to come by. It was Antoinette Lewis who was really phenomenal. 5 points, 6 rebounds in the first quarter. When Vanessa Ellis subbed her out, I was like, dude, what are you doing, man? She's on track to get a double-double in the first half. She did still finish the game with a double-double, but was a real bedrock of offense and consistency that was needed in that first game. Shauna Harrison as well, with that first quarter, hit a three-pointer, then got to the free throw line 4 times for the 7 first quarter points, and just kept them ticking until the second half. In the second half, it was Georgia Gale who really took over and just showed the absolute class that she can have in these games. Huge shots, dishing out assists, and just listen post-game to the comments from head coach Vanessa Ellis and Georgia Gale. I think it really highlights 2 things. One, how little preparation the Hatters had leading into this game, which makes it even more impressive. And 2, just how they're respecting their opponents when they're focusing on completing the quad. Sheffield Hatters head coach Vanessa Ellis, after an amazing 90-71 win, immediate reaction after winning the SLB Cup.
Just really excited, pleased. Credit to the players. It's all down to them, the hard work they put in behind the scenes. And, coming from a very fractured international break, so we've not trained as a team, only one day. So it's been really good, really pleasing performance.
Love that. Your team has actually been on an incredible run of form. I'm really interested in what you saw in the first half, where it was just a 10-point gap that you had, and then that third quarter to come out and win by such a big margin. What changed in the third quarter to really make sure that lead was solid?
Just we talked about defence, defensive intensity, physicality, positioning, not letting them get to the rim easily. So we just made a few changes defensively, and the players stepped up. I think, they were determined to get a win, and an important start to the second half. Just established, our position.
And you're now half the way towards getting the quads. Are you looking ahead? Are you thinking we can win all 4 of these?
I always think you have to look ahead, but you take each game as it comes, There's a lot of games between now and then. We have to respect our opponents, prepare well for each game, and, if we stick together as a team and we keep playing as a team, we should, be going for the 4.
Congratulations, well done, coach. Love that.
Thank you.
Okay, nice. I'm here with Georgia, the SLB Cup Women's Finals MVP. Now, you've got a lot of MVP trophies now. Do you have a space on the shelf for this one?
I'm running out of space.
Honestly, it's so impressive, the game though. 20 points, 7 assists. How did you feel being out there?
I felt quite relaxed, to be honest. I have a lot of confidence in my team. We do treat any game like it's any other game, not like this is bigger than anything else. So we just came out, played together, and played well.
I think you've as well seen that first 3 points go down as the team, the 3-point percentage was really high above average. Well, I suppose how much of that is going to be the weapon going into the second half of the season?
To be honest, we haven't shot well this season, so the fact that we shot well today was a little bit of a shock. We're a team that we don't have to make threes to win games. You know, we have a lot of weapons. If it's not being shooting from the outside, it might be someone inside. So hopefully it stays this way. It'll help us a lot, but either way, we're good.
Nice. And are you feeling pretty confident now that you guys are going to secure the quads to a clean sweep of the league?
Yeah, for sure. That was our goal at the start of the season. We're 2 from 4 right now. We're hoping to get all 4.
Fantastic. Congratulations on the win. Really good.
Thank
For Sheffield, they're on track to get the quad. They're 2 of 2 wins now. They have a cushion in first place in the SLBW. And I think really importantly, I think they've shown that they can consistently overcome their biggest threats in the league, which I would say are the Caledonia Gladiators. It's quite cool for Jessica Eastford-Yates, obviously coming back to Manchester, winning in front of her home crowd. And although the crowd wasn't that big for the women's final, you could tell there was a real core group of fans that actually knew the players and were rooting for the players, and that was really positive to see. On to the men's final, where I don't think anyone expected what happened in the first 20 minutes of play. The London Lions have had periods domestically and across Europe where they've struggled to score. But 11 first quarter points for the Lions? That wasn't on anyone's bingo cards. And Manchester were really giving them work on the defensive end. The switch to that 2-3 zone, and just how much that hampered the Lions really surprised me. London's does have a tendency to sometimes overthink, to overanalyse, overpass. But at the core, you'd say you have great guards who can penetrate, get 2 feet in the paint and really force the zone to collapse. You have mobile, athletic bigs who can also shoot. And the action they've run all year is this high-low action where they're looking to get Ethan Price on a great inside seal after the defence rotates. Now, the shot making isn't as pronounced on the squad when Lukashunas isn't on the roster, but Chauncey Brown Jr. is running corner to corner across the baseline, looking for that corner 3. They should have, in that first and second quarter, had both the ability to and the nous to shoot their way out of that zone fairly rapidly. Maybe it was the bright lights and being in front of the pro-Manchester crowd, and it was a very, very pro-Manchester crowd. But something just meant that they couldn't break that zone in the first couple of quarters. On the other side, though, Jordan Johnson was absolutely cooking defences, hitting some incredible jelly layups, step back threes. Ofi Soko is still searching for his ankles on some of these. And it was kind of a blessing and a curse for Manchester. Yes, he played ridiculously well in the first half, and that really did, and it was the thing that gave Manchester the lead. But it also meant that PJ Smith and Max Jones didn't get going and didn't get in rhythm. And I think you'd probably look at this game, and especially Max Jones, and you'd say that is someone who absolutely underperformed on this stage. Overall for the game, there was a physicality and an edge. And I didn't think there was anything wrong with Tariq Phillips going hard to the rim and catching Matt Nicholson in the face, cutting him open, and forcing him to take a blood substitution. It wasn't malicious at all, but it just showed how aggressively both teams were playing, and really just not giving an inch to each other. The same thing was true for Zach Irving's foul on Joel Scott. Was it a hard foul? 100%. Was it dirty? Never. The teams, they don't particularly care for each other, and they don't have to. Do you know what I mean? We're not here to all be friends and play like church ball. But I thought they showed in how they were talking to each other, and, the physicality they played with, they were really here to win. In the second quarter, though, the Londons went scoreless for nearly the first 4 minutes, but they were still able to play well enough that they didn't lose that quarter, with both teams scoring 21. I was absolutely gutted, though, for Kane Henry. He'd just come back from, really bad injury. He made some enormous hustle plays, putting his body on the line straight away for the team, and he injures himself again. And that pretty much takes us into half-time, where Manchester were up and they had a lead, and it felt actually like they were comfortable and in control. Zooming into the third quarter, though, all season long, the third quarter have been the London Lions calling cards, and they really came out and put a stranglehold on this game. But in the first play, though, when Tim Adedekasi got on and one on the first play, I was like, wow, Manchester is locked in. Perhaps they're not going to succumb to that third quarter London Lions wave. But I thought wrong. London were just really impressive in the third, and a huge catalyst was the full court press, making it hard for Manchester to inbound the ball, getting the ball out of Jordan Johnson's hands early, And again, I just thought it was amazing. Tariq Phillips especially was walking this really tight line where he only picked up his first foul in the third quarter, but he was playing extremely close and extremely physical defence in the full court press. And offensively, the Lions just got back to being who they are. Joel Scott was attacking the rim and using that sort of soft jump hook floater that he has in the short roll. And I have to talk about Cam Auguste. He wasn't impactful in the first half, but he absolutely came to life in the fourth quarter. He scored 12 of London's 25 points in the fourth. In fact, in the fourth quarter alone, London only hit 9 3-pointers on the night. 4 of them came in the fourth quarter. Just stepping back from all of the other stuff that happens, you have to appreciate how much of a brilliant comeback victory this was for London. In particular, where Manchester looked very much like they had control in the first half, the composure was really impressive, and Auguste's play meant that he deserved to be the MVP. Now, interestingly, I feel like what we haven't seen yet, though, in these 2 games between Manchester and London, in fact, we haven't seen this all season, is a game where both of these squads are really fully healthy. On the March 4th game, it was London who was playing without Phillips and Soko. And in this game, there was no Kyan Cleary, Kane Henry goes down. And to be honest, based on how Kyan is moving around and the things that I've seen him put on his socials, I don't really think we can expect a fully healthy matchup between these 2 teams this season. Everyone is saying, we'll see you in the finals, we'll see you in the finals. But I just think it's tough, man. I think London have definitely done enough where I believe that they're going to win the league. Even if they pick up another couple of losses on the way, I think it's still first place is theirs. They'll get the top seed. I think Cheshire will come second, and then Manchester will be third. And for Manchester, those 2 losses to Caledonia are suddenly becoming really, really impactful. Just think about if they hadn't lost twice to the Gladiators, Manchester would now be 16-8 and really putting the pressure on the London Lions to stay perfect, especially with another game against them in a couple of weeks. But as it is, I think they're too far behind now. I think Manchester will be third, which would mean in the playoff picture, their most likely first round opponent, I think, is Surrey, and then most likely Cheshire after that. I don't love Manchester in either of those matchups, truthfully. Against Surrey, I think they have some really good guards who can control and put the defensive clamps a little bit on kind of Max Jones and PJ Smith. And they also have kind of that offensive rebounding threat that's kind of always there. Against Cheshire, I think it's an emotional game, and I think Cheshire just stretched the floor too much for Matt Nicholson to really be able to play an impactful role. So I wouldn't want to bet on Manchester beating Cheshire either. However, from a London Lions perspective, they're as close to the quad as the Sheffield Hatters. They've won 2 for 2. The third one, the league title, is pretty much in the bag. And just being realistic now, it's can anyone stop this team from winning the quad? I think that actually there's a strong likelihood now that with Leicester's visa issues, even if both players, in Don Carey and Mark Loving do come back to the Riders, I think they've lost Raekwon Battle to Italy. I think the most likely thing is that Leicester will slide down now into the 8th seed and they'll face London in the first round. And I'll make a lot of money betting on London to beat Leicester pretty handedly. Then in the next round, you probably either the Flyers or the Sharks, who I envision sitting in that 4-5 matchup. Both of which have victories over the London Lions. But in the regular season between the Flyers and the Sharks, Bristol have been a really bad matchup for Sheffield. So I'd like to imagine that it would be a London-Bristol semi-final. And we saw what happened in the trophy semi-finals with London and Bristol. They absolutely smushed them in that second game. And so it comes down to, in one game in the finals, where I'd argue that Surrey, Cheshire or Manchester could be there, that would be the last opportunity to stop the London Lions, or potentially that would be the last obstacle for the London Lions to overcome as they truly chase and are on the brink of history. And the frustration that people have about London winning the quad, it 100% should be studied, man, because it is wild and it's dramatically different to the feeling that people have about the Sheffield Hatters. If I said to someone independently, there's a team that spent loads of money to bring British players into Super League basketball, and many of whom are mega, mega likeable. I don't want to be like a Dean One Glazer, but Dean Williams is absolutely fantastic. I've got a lot of time for him on and off the court. Amin Adamu, I've never spoken to the bloke, but he seems spot on. Ethan Price, the guy is bringing baked banana bread to practice. What's not to like? The coach and the system that London have, I enjoy watching. Even though I think sometimes Sabonis walks a really tight line between being a really animated coach who's demanding stuff from his players, and potentially that line of, is he doing too much when he's pulling players out and you can see him really going for it on the sidelines. But ultimately, that's his style. I was chatting up with some of the support staff in the AO Arena when I was there. All the guys there, they seem like funny guys, hard-working guys, just trying to do a good job and get wins. So it's a question like, why is there so much frustration about, can they be stopped, rather than excitement about can they do it? Honestly, I would say some of it's natural because the Lions have won a lot in the last 4 years and people don't necessarily love rooting for a team that's always beating you. I think I'd be crazy if I said that. I do think though for the Lions, now going back to that, there's still I think a strong undercurrent of the 7-7-7 factor. Something about the fact that that kind of whole scenario, and that was, the league and the Lions to be fair, but that whole scenario, it still feels, I think, like there were no real repercussions of that. And people kind of feel that. And I think the other thing that people also point to is the money factor. Although I'm feeling more and more like that is just a choice that London has made to be competitive and to really put the best product out there on the floor, particularly from a European perspective. Personally, I'd like to see the introduction of a salary cap and potentially having a penalty or a luxury tax for teams exceeding the salary cap. That's just so finances can be spread more evenly, I think, amongst the other clubs, and there's kind of a choice, a purposeful choice that's being made. If I'm going to go above the salary cap, I know I'm going to be helping and supporting other domestic clubs. But being willing to invest in a team isn't inherently a bad thing. Ben said on the podcast himself that Manchester is owned by a sovereign wealth fund. It's not like they don't have the cash to spend if they wanted to. When you take away all that other stuff, I think you just stand back and say, the London Lions are really good at basketball. And although it didn't happen for them on a European stage this season, domestically, they're working hard, they're clicking, they're hitting shots, and they're being resilient, and they're really pushing for history. That's the basketball take this weekend. It was great hoops, enjoyed by all, including a comeback victory for the London Lions over Manchester Basketball, their second trophy so far this season. But let's be honest, there's a huge chunk of the story that we've not touched on, and so in part 2, we're going to break down the scuffle, ticket sales, and all of the backstage action that didn't happen. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll catch you at the next one to talk more hoops. Peace, guys. Second game.